Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Strategy Group Fueling Opportunistic and High Impact Collaboration this morning. We have with us three of the leaders of this group, Justin, Ashley, and Jenny. And as you know, the purpose of our webinars today, our Strategy Group webinars, is really several-fold. So first of all, it's to bring clarity around the recommendations that this group is lifting up for consideration at Fall Conference just a week and a half or so away from today. It's also an opportunity for some Q&A, and that's from participants to the presenters or vice versa. Again, to bring more clarity and understanding around each of the recommendations that this group has lifted up. And then, of course, as you're reviewing all the strategy group recordings, you're looking at the driver group's work. Ultimately, you're deciding on three of these areas that these groups that you'd like to learn more about at Fall Conference. And some of you are already in the process of signing up for those three engagement sessions as we speak. And the discussion today will help better inform that process and decision for you. So as we get started, I just want to thank the leadership of this team and the entire strategy group at hand here today for all the time and work you've put into this process so far. And we're anxious as a group to hear what you have to share with us today. So with that, I'll turn it over to either Justin, Jenny, or Ashley.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint here to get us rolling.
Right.
There we go. Well, thanks again for joining us. We're excited to share our thoughts, our group thoughts on fueling opportunistic and high impact collaboration with you today. First, want to get started by talking really about the why. So why is collaboration important? And we know that with lofty goals and complex issues, it really requires us to bring together people of varying strengths and backgrounds to work together. And that's how we'll succeed the quickest and the best through rich collaboration. Speaking of rich collaboration, we had a really great team and wanted to give you a glimpse of who all came together to talk about this issue. And we're really happy with the team that was brought together because it's a group of varying backgrounds and multidisciplinary and at different points in everyone's career, which has really provided some great perspective and rich conversation around the topic. In a true spirit of collaboration, this is a definition that our group came up with that was actually based on our first discussion, throwing out what we thought of as collaboration. So that was done through a Google Doc before we actually met via Zoom. And so this pulls together everyone's ideas pretty well. Collaboration is successful when committed partners accomplish a common goal with shared purpose to achieve maximum effect and efficiency as all team members contribute and the outcome is mutually beneficial. A group that is nimble and unselfish may achieve results much greater than their original vision. So we really truly all believed in this, and that really helped us to get to some of the solutions we're going to present today. We utilized a lot of resources in pulling this together. Some of those were YouTube, lots of TED Talks around collaboration. We pulled out some research papers as well. We also had some really rich conversations with some external partners and thinking about what their organizations do to foster around collaboration. And really, our first meeting, we threw out a list of values that related to collaboration that each of us really identified. And we were able to go back and look at those values in our spare time. And then we rated those and we took a poll to determine which was most important to the group. And Jenny's going to talk to us a little bit about what those were identified as.
Well, thanks, Ashley. So yeah, we had a list of around 20 different core values that we were discussing amongst our group. And these are the three that we came down to as really being the key core values related to collaboration in these high impact teams. So the first is communication. Then purpose and inclusion. If you go to the next slide, Ashley, I'll dig into those a little bit more. This idea of communication, really this is all members of a team have to have easy access to everything going on within that team. So they know where they've been, what the history of that team is, what progress is ongoing, what direction are we headed, and all of that in a timely manner, which you'll see in a little bit kind of ties into the other core values as well. And along with that, the leadership of each team needs to be really clear on the guidance and leadership that they're providing, and making sure that those goals that they're using to lead their team are mutually beneficial to everyone on that team, which then drops down to this second core value of being purpose-driven. So a purpose-driven team has these clearly defined, mutually agreed upon goals, and really those goals are in alignment with the passion and drive and commitment of the team members. So being a member of a team should align with your personal goals, passions, as well as your strengths. So then that leads into our next core value, which is creating this inclusive culture. So these diverse backgrounds, so just because you're all on the same team doesn't mean you have the identical goals. It just need to be in alignment. And more importantly, that the perspectives and strengths and skills that you bring to that team really are coming together to provide, to build this powerful team. So complementary strengths and resources that really align with roles and responsibilities within a team. And then just finally that within all of those diverse perspectives and strengths, we're really valuing each other. So it's the idea that your contributions are different than mine, but I really value what you're doing. So for example, with our PowerPoint slides, Penny Root was the creator of all of this. She works in Kayla's office, one of our team members, and she just has this passion and skill and strength for making amazing animated slides. Team, because that's not a skill that the other members were able to bring along. So our core values then led into our recommendation.
You're cutting out on us, Jenny.
Oh no. Can you hear me better now?
Yep, we can.
Okay. So core values, I'm not sure what you missed, but if we go to the next slide, we can talk about how the core values played into our recommendations. So our first recommendation was to change the culture within Extension around collaborative efforts. So this really draws from the purpose and inclusion core values that we discussed. So the idea that we succeed together through teams that are driven to have that same purpose. So the idea of purpose really being clear and aligned with all team members, as well as including various perspectives within our team and various skills. So that inclusion idea. And the idea is really to have smaller teams that are nimble. So kind of relating to the last strategy group that was presenting, this idea of being agile and able to respond to ideas fast. The second impact we came up with was to invest in our teams. So again, coming back to this inclusion idea, and the word that kept bouncing around within our team was this idea of being reboarded. So reboarding instead of onboarding is kind of everybody that's, whether you've been here a year or 50 years, really bringing everybody together to build these real connections between people so that we're valuing different perspectives and strengths, as well as empowering people to use these different tools within their teams. And then finally, this technology piece. So leveraging technology to really form these alliances and facilitate communication in a meaningful way. So this comes back to both the communication and inclusion core values, where everybody's able to be aware of what's happening on the team, what the history is, where we're going, what current progress is, as well as making sure everybody is included in those conversations. So those are our three recommendations. Now Justin's gonna dive a little bit deeper into each of these topics.
Thanks, Jenny. And yeah, Ashley and Jenny did a great job of kind of pulling together the pieces on how we got to each one of these kind of three recommendations. And like she said, I want to dig in a little more detail on what we mean by change the culture, which is one of those specific kind of goals that were lifted up. And you can see the key points here, really starting with a mission and vision. Often we start teams, and I've been involved in teams where we're immediately into what's needed to be done. And we don't spend as much time discussing the vision of the team. It's too much about the goals that are part of that team. And so maybe a little bit of guidance for the leadership on teams in terms of, keeping that mission and vision in as part of that progress that's going to be made. Speak from the heart. I really like this in terms of change the culture, because I think too often we kind of avoid that in some cases, but really making this part of the conversation. This actually came through our strategy group because we were given a high degree of flexibility and conversation. We ended up in these more heart-to-heart conversations, and I really felt I got to know the team really well. And I think it was through that process that each one of us recognized that we could better communicate on what our specific goals were within the team and how we all aligned. And so, building that trust by extending trust and, putting a friendship opportunity up front as part of some of those conversations. Focus on the good of the team and organizations succeed together. This is a critical one. It came out in a couple different places, and I'm sure other teams have brought it up. I was part of the last discussion as well. But often this can come internally from the individual, but also, maybe from administration's view on how teams might be put together. So there's been quite a bit of discussion on that already. Empower these small teams by aligning goals and complementary skills. This is a bullet point within Change the Culture, and really going to see it come out in the technology side later. But, how do we find ways to align those people with complementary skills? And then think about the continuity so the team can continue to work as members transition on and off. And again, technology, that's kind of where those pieces fell out. We don't want to make it an action item, but these were things that came up or were addressed. And some of our discussions around this Change the Culture, came through, how we maybe might utilize fall conference as a way of just getting time to know people and spend time with them. Often we click off, I think, into our little groups of conversation, but facilitating ways that we can meet people we wouldn't otherwise. I think there's some great conversations there. Next slide. So this next one is invest in our team. And, specifically at this, using the team members' strengths, we've done BP10 and Strength Finder, and, utilizing those to build these high-functioning teams that can really succeed in their goals. Learning more about others, this fits kind of back into the culture too, recognizing how each person contributes and listening to others' perspectives, and reinforcing that this is a place where you can express ideas and there's an opportunity to do that. And I really like this third bullet, this reboarding thing. I think it's just part of my terminology now, but I like the idea of thinking about this in terms of reboarding and those people that are onboarding, but identifying best practices for collaboration, really spending time in conversation with that. Speaking the same language. We even had conversations amongst our team. I don't have a teaching appointment, but I was talking about programming, and they said, well, that's teaching terminology. And so just, having conversations around that and focusing in on those terms and allowing those team members to interact on a personal level. I do get a chance to do that on occasion. We do all get a chance to do that, but it tends to be by chance or opportunity. Something directed towards that would really help us to get to know one another. We had a few examples of this. The Eureka or Rhodes Scholar Tours, focus on various parts of the state and what educators and specialists are doing. So having some time to spend with those people that are kind of pushed in that direction. The next slide. So leveraging technology. Everybody on the team got to know pretty well that I'm a very tools-orientated person, so they had to calm me down at times, but I do like tools. So this came up as part of our previous conversations, but utilizing technology to facilitate communication. Since I started my position, I've worked on 3 emerging issues. Each time it's been a challenge to build the correct team for those issues. And I know that exists, if we're addressing today's key issues, we need to rapidly build, assemble, and have a nimble team that can address that key issue without losing the people that are critical at the start. And then as I came on board, and I know others have experienced this, you come into the midst of a team sometimes, and it's really hard to keep up with what that team has accomplished, what they've been doing. There's a lot of questions. Sometimes it's helpful to the team, but in other cases it can slow down the progress if you don't know what's going on or get slightly disconnected. Identifying those needs and interests through technology to form unlikely alliances. A key issue we're dealing with right now might involve natural resources, a team that I really haven't worked with exclusively. So just being able to search out those key team members and add them would really facilitate that in terms of addressing some emerging issues that we face. Focusing on the value of technology before implementation. So, Angie's done a great job of teaching us all different aspects of technology, and those that really like the technology and want to go after that. But often we have people on the outside that don't know the value, so they don't go to the training maybe because they haven't seen the value in it yet. So focusing on value first, what does this do for you? How would it help you? And then get them invested in the idea of learning about that technology. As I pushed various tools, I was, got a great degree of education on what was already out there and available that we're already not maybe utilizing as well, but could. And so we had a great discussion around how do we get people involved in that technology to keep up with our changing clientele. Provide online, face-to-face, as well as one-on-one training. This fits a couple different aspects, and it goes back to the previous recommendations we've made. I started pushing heavy amounts of technology. I was reminded by people who had been here longer than me that face-to-face is really important. And this came into the conversation about how we might leverage technology. Some people are not going to learn by the online system and are going to want that one-on-one. So how do we facilitate that as part of our leadership groups or collaborative teams to make sure everybody's at the same spot? And then this last one, this matchmaker, I really like this one. When I started and got in, issue teams were just forming, and finding the right issue team was tough. And I've had an extension or opportunities to speak with new people in extension that are just joining the system, and they don't necessarily know how to navigate all the issue teams. So almost having something that match them up with the right team through a series of questions and have the leadership of those teams involved and making sure that they could find their team would be a great way to do that. Next slide. So, we obviously need some successful indicators or indicators that this is going to be successful. So obviously high quality programs that are produced. This requires a baseline of where we're at and how we move forward on any one of these, but nimble response to emerging issues, outcomes that are beneficial. We did actually talk about what does that look like as a metric? And these could look like maybe reduced response time after a key issue to the full formation of a team that can address that issue. That would come in conversation with the teams that are forming. Teams actually sunset, and the frequency of that actually increases. So they meet their goal, the team actually sunsets and moves on to a new goal that could be formed. Survey extension for their perception of the team and their values, determining if they're finding more value through these types of processes. Higher retention of faculty due to the happiness of success on teams, team being the goal when something comes up. And then the increased use of technologies around collaboration to facilitate those team functions. Next. So this is kind of our wrap up to all this. We've got purpose, communication, and inclusion. Those were those core values that were identified. And then you see leveraging technology, investing in our teams, and changing the culture. So these are big, lofty goals, right? They go all across extension. It's difficult to identify a specific thing, but provide our team members an opportunity to learn, grow, and undertake work that they find meaningful and feel rewarding. Everybody on our team agreed that would be a helpful way to find value in the collaboration, create those high impacts. Communicate clearly, and then trust people that they will make good decisions if given the facts, that extension of trust. And then, of course, we'll accomplish together what we cannot accomplish in isolation. So we'd feel free to field questions. We also have questions for the group as well if there are none asked. So thank you for your time.
All right. Great job, team. Really very comprehensive presentation. A lot of ideas and thoughts about how you emerged with the 3 recommendations that you're lifting up. Let's first open up the floor to those online. We have 80 plus individuals online this morning listening in. What questions do you have of this team? I'm sure they're in the process of just taking it all in.
It's a lot of information. We would ask that anybody comment if we missed a specific core value that wasn't identified that they really feel should be lifted up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm reading Deb's comment just as I was saying that. We did talk about both within Extension and outside of Extension. So apologize for not bringing that up, but there was an internal conversation. How do we communicate with one another? And then how do we communicate with these outside organizations? And from my own perspective, I'll let my other team members comment. That's where the leveraging technology piece came for me, because sometimes we have communications that we want to keep internal. We're not sure of whether or not we can declare it a fact yet, but we want our extension educators and other people that are working on that issue to know what's happening in real time. And so from the technology side, we really felt that having a way to go to a unified place to do that, but then to separate out how we might piece out that information be helpful. I know there was lots of other conversation. Ashley and Jenny, do you want to comment on those?
I would just reiterate what you just said, Justin, and I think that although we didn't mention it directly, I think all of these recommendations really could go both internal and external partnerships and collaborations, particularly when thinking at those core values and how those relate to teams within our communities as well. Definitely a good point, though. Thank you for bringing that up, Deb, because we probably do need to address that.
So folks, here's a question from Nathan Mueller. It's a great job. What discussion did you have about getting invest time and effort from team members when most at the university tend to overextend themselves?
I can't agree more. We are all overextended a lot. And when I looked at this, I've tried the I'll do it myself route, and that's a terrible route. That's a very costly and time-consuming route. And so I think the invest time and effort from team members comes to success of all the team members if they're on teams they're supposed to be on, right? If you're truly invested and have purpose in being on those teams, this should be synergistic with the rest of your efforts that you're making in Extension. So we talked about the matchmaker technology and making sure you're on teams that are, issue teams that best fit. And I guess, I have that hammer of that technology piece I talked about. I'll keep hitting nails with that thing. But I really feel that investment and time and effort in that would be really helpful for helping us coordinate ourselves. We jump a lot of projects. I know Nathan does this a lot too. And just being able to keep those organized and say, okay, I haven't talked with this team for a little bit. We haven't had a meeting in a while. I just want to update myself real quick, and having a resource that's available that could help me do that. I end up searching emails and text messages and looking at phone calls and notes, and it's just, the organization piece would help a lot with collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Justin, especially about the efficiency piece. But another side of it is the idea of having a lot smaller teams. And so it's not where we have 70 people on a team trying to accomplish a goal, where everybody's kind of participating in some fashion or another, but maybe not feeling totally invested. It's a lot tighter of a team that's able to do these activities. And so it's more in alignment with your goals, and you're working on these smaller teams. So.
And Deb Weisenkamp's agreeing with you there, Jenny. Randy Sanders asking, how do we get people to focus on the team while being pulled by local needs?
I think that's a great question, Randy. It depends on what those local needs are, and this is part of understanding your team members. I think we need to understand where each of us comes from. Work is part of our lives, but not all of our lives. And so I know there's other specific strategy groups focused on that. But sure, things get pulled. You get pulled in all different directions. If it aligns with a team and you can identify that team, that's that nimble team response, that Jenny was talking about. I think that's the opportunity and to form some of those potential things. But great question.
Yeah, Justin, I'll just add on, piggyback what you said. This alignment idea is really important for all of us to think about in our respective roles. In generally, what are we really good at? What are we known for? And how do we take our talents and passion and plug that into a variety of teams, whether it's at the local, state, or national level? But in general, we're always going the direction of our specialty, our focus, our passion. And if we can find the right ways, and I love a lot of the ideas about the matchmaker and how we tie in with others who, where we can have the synergy and the type of high impact teams that we need to address these issues that are upon us.
And I'll comment a little bit on that from some of the experiences I've had, and Nathan's on here, and so others kind of can relate to this. When something pops up and so many people get involved so quickly, it's hard to keep that line of communication open with everybody and make sure that everybody's involved, and knows what's going on. So information evolves rapidly through a whole bunch of sources, and I'll catch people later in the year and go, man, I haven't talked to you in forever about this. This is what's going on. And I could tell those individuals feel behind, but it's hard to collectively write 20 or 30 emails to keep everybody up to date, but make sure the information's going to the right person so it's individualized. And I brought this up to our team, having a place where if I clicked off a county as an area of interest that would be influenced by that team or that issue, that educator and those people were immediately notified that was coming up in their county, and then they had the opportunity to join in the conversation, follow it, pick their level of involvement, but everybody would be kept up to speed all the time, and I could go to one place to make sure that that's happening.
Does the team have other questions of the group?
We do. I believe Jenny identified some questions to throw out for discussion. Jenny, do you have those?
While you're thinking about those, I'll just chime in one more observation, and that is that I love the passion I'm hearing from these team leads. Ashley, you mentioned it early on. You mentioned something about this was a team that sort of naturally came together and really leaned on each other in a very positive and productive way. And I think that is been displayed here today, because I can see I can hear the passion in your voices. I can see the inspiration in the words and what you've discussed as a team. And so that's one of the things we want to think about as we convey these ideas to the larger groups going forward at fall conference is, what's the inspiration behind the recommendations? Why in the world would we want to folks go down this track? These recommendations are designed to give us direction that lead us towards desired outcomes. And so that's part of the picture you want to paint at fall conference in your engagement sessions, is not only the recommendations, but what's the inspiration? What's the why behind this? So really good job in doing all that today.
Yeah. I really like Deb's comment, and I think that's important, that we can't possibly be involved in everything. But I think the worst thing that somebody can hear, at least I've been told by educators, the worst thing to hear is that a producer in a county tells you more about something that's happening in your county than what you know about that's happening. If there's a project that was started and they're on that project, and they hear about it secondhand. So yeah, we can't collectively do everything, but I think we do need access to the resources to be connected to the people who might be taking the lead on those projects or the group, so that if we want to be informed and have the resources, we have access to those. But I do agree that's a great comment. Can't do everything.
So I guess if one question, just to kind of spur some more conversation around this, what would make you feel that your efforts within collaboration are valued? So we talked a lot about reporting structure, rewards, other kinds of support, interpersonal connections, recognition in some sort of way. What would really make you feel that collaborations are valued?
I really agree with Katie's comment, that it's happening organically and is not feeling forced. And hopefully, something like the Matchmaker would do that. You'd feel like you were being aligned with something that met your goals and opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the evaluation piece, that's where it's reflected. It's something that we're valuing. We're evaluating people in assessments. And the nimbleness, definitely, Nathan, having quick outputs.
Mhm.
And, part of our conversation was, yes, we're a very diverse group, but our personal and collective experiences through our work is only part of Extension. And so we want to know, who do we miss? Who's out there that saw this and thought, I don't know how I fit into this. This is how I view it. We really want to hear from those people.
All right. Well, I think participants and team leads, nice job of further defining clarity around the recommendations and what this group has lifted up today. Thanks to the team, the leaders, and the entire team for all the work you've done in moving the strategy group forward. Really, really good work. So we're going to ask that the team, if you would just please send me your PowerPoint and any of your supporting documents, and/or post those to your box folder, your team box folder. We'll make sure we get those up on the Extension 2025 website very quickly. So those who have had, along with the recording of this webinar, so those who didn't have a chance to participate live can take this in the coming days. So any other questions or thoughts before we close this strategy group conversation?
Just want to say thank you to everyone for your comments and feedback, and looking forward to more conversation at Fall Conference.
All right. Great job, everyone. We'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Have a great day.